to the Association of Zoologists, and to all the young students who are present today for attending this wonderful talk that will be soon starting, that will be delivered by Dr. Umapati. It is my pleasure to introduce my, a long-time friend and a very genuine, good, humble, down-to-earth person, Dr. Govinda Swami Umapati, who is a senior principal scientist and group leader in the laboratory of conservation for the conservation of endangered species at the CCMB Hyderabad. It's a CSIR lab, as you all know. He is also a professor at the Faculty of Biological Sciences, ACSIR, New Delhi, and adjunct professor at National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bangalore. Dr. Umapati has had an illustrious career because he was a gold medalist in wildlife sciences from Bharatidasan University, Trichy, and got his PhD from SACON, that is the Salim Ali Center for Ornithology and Natural History. After 2 years of postdoctoral study, he joined the CCMB in year 2000 and involved setting up the laboratory called as the Laboratory for Conservation of Endangered Species at the CSIR CCMB lab. At present, he is the senior principal scientist and group leader of the Laconis lab at the CCMB Hyderabad. It is sponsored by the Department of Science and Technology. His keen research interests include understanding species extinction, wildlife reproduction and physiology, conservation genetics, biodiversity monitoring, and use of eDNA and genomics. He has got patents to his credit. Well, I know I've heard him. I've heard about his studies in the field of reproductive biology of wild animals, and he'll be mentioning that today. Publications and patents are there to his credit, and about 75 research papers, including the ones published in Nature. He's got 7 book chapters, has co-authored several books, manuals, and reports. He has also developed technology for non-invasive early pregnancy detection in cattle and buffaloes, and non-invasive, simple and user-friendly stress hormone assessment in pets. The former one is under commercialization. He's got membership and fellowship of several national and international bodies and organizations, and he has research projects and funded by, well, you name it and he's got it. DST, DBT, CSIR, NTCA, CZA, that is MOEF, then US Fish and Wildlife Service, and several others, to name a few. With these words, I invite Dr. Umapati. The stage is yours. Over to you. You can please start.
Yeah, just hold on. You need to allow me to share.
You can share straight away.
Yeah. Oh, just hold on. It's not going.
Maybe if there's a network issue, you can switch off your camera.
No problem. So I have to share with the entire window or entire screen. Which one I have to show? Your entire screen. So I have to see the screen.
Share only the window. First you open the PPTs
Okay.
and then share it.
Able to see now? No.
Not yet.
Just hold on. Just hold on. share your entire screen. Is it right? Or a
Sir,
window?
you have to share only the window.
Yeah.
Keep your PPTs open and do
Okay.
not minimize that particular window. Just change over. Yeah, now it's visible.
Oh, you have shared the screen. Now you can open the PPT now. Open your PPT. So it is seen.
What I'll do, I'll first I'll take full window, then I'll do it. Yeah. Okay.
Now open your PPT
Okay.
and make it full screen.
Now it is coming? No?
No.
Somebody has to once again tell me how to do this one.
Sir, can I guide you?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Raktim here. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Instead of presenting the window, sometimes presenting the window leads to network issues if it is weak.
And I got
So
good,
you
very
first
good, very good.
better you present your screen. Present screen.
Okay.
First present your screen.
Okay, present the screen. So it says a tab or a window or entire screen.
No,
which one?
entire screen. You present your entire screen.
Okay, I did.
And after that, now you go to your PPT.
No, PPT only, this only coming. PPT is not there.
Now, what you do, first you open your PPT. Let it be.
Okay. Already opened.
And then you present your entire screen.
Just hold on. Okay, now it's coming.
Yeah, now go to your PPT.
Browse. It says avoid infinity mail. Where is that?
So
Doesn't
just
matter.
ignore that. Ignore that statement.
Okay.
Ignore. Press ignore.
Okay, ignore.
Yeah. So usually this happens when you share the screen. So no problem. You go to your PPT.
Already is open. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now
It is
make it
visible
full
now.
screen. Full screen. Make it full screen, sir.
Yeah, it is coming now.
It's visible, sir.
Fine.
Please go ahead.
Now it's coming?
Yes.
Yes,
You
yes.
can start.
Yeah, thank you so much. Sorry for the initial hitch up.
Maybe you can change a couple of slides, sir, and just check whether they are changing actually. Yeah. We can
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
It is changing. Yes. Good.
Excellent. Great. Yeah.
Please, sir, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Devgar and Association for inviting me to give a talk on the subject. I'm really delighted to share our research work carried out in CCMB, especially Lacons. I know Devgar quite some time and we use meet regularly during SCRBC meeting. And we started collaborating each other nowadays. I'll briefly tell you about how a technology intervention can help in wildlife conservation. And my talk essentially will be about how biodiversity laws and conservation measures are there, and what are reproductive technologies, how conservation physiology, new area which we started working on, is also going to help, and how the conservation genetics or genetic tools can help in wildlife conservation. I'll be talking about this aspect. Before going to my talk today, and I just briefly introduce to you how the present scenario on the wildlife conservation. Look at here, number of species, getting endangered year by year. It's really a serious issue. Look at here table, which is, I think you're able to see my slide, and the 2000, around 3,500 species have been classified as threatened species. 2010 is it almost doubled, and even 2021 it's almost again doubled. Almost every 10 years, number of species getting threatened, increasing. And in the meantime, we lost many species from wild. Around 360 species, known species, we were lost during last 500 years. But at the same time, the loss is very, very serious, and the current rate of extinction is 2 to 3 orders of magnitude, and most of the extinction happening in a continent. Previously, people have recorded this extinction are basically happens in island due to extinction of resources and invasion of new people, invasion of new animal and other species, but it's happening in continent. That's a serious issue. And who's responsible? If you look at here, generally you and me directly responsible for this extinction basically. And what are the major causes? Essentially, habitat destruction, fragmentation, over-exploitation, poaching, invasive alien species, pollution, contaminants, and recently, climate change also joined to the factors which are affecting the species. When such a species are really serious in their survival, what we do basically? There are conservation measures taken up. They are called in situ conservation, where a place is declared as a biosphere reserve, tiger reserve, national park, sanctuaries, protected areas to save specific species or habitat, like you may be knowing Project Tiger, Project Lion, Project Elephant, Project Bustard. They have been targeted a particular species. So a species and its environment can be protected perfectly without further degradation. But there are other issues when individuals, very limited number, they need extensive conservation issues, conservation measures, which are required, exit conservation. When large area may not help save a species, you can bring them into captivity, breed them successfully, release them back in wild. That's the other way of doing. It's called exit conservation. People use different ways of doing, zoological park, botanical gardens, captive breeding centers and all. There are many such examples we have. Previously, Indian crocodile, one of the best example where early 70s, almost Indian crocodiles, all the 3 species of verge of extinction have been successfully bred in captivity, restocked in wild. Now, this has been well-established population all over the world, all over India, and this has been now upgraded to endangered to vulnerable category. That means we have really successfully saved this species from extinction. Another example we can tell, pygmy hawk, almost declared extinct. People have found a few individuals, brought to captivity and bred into 300-400 individuals. This is in Assam, and released wild. Now they are doing well. The recent one successful captive breeding program is on mouse deer, where our lab was involved. We have been very successful in that. When we have measure like this, but it's not so easy to do in the real time scenario, because it has a lot of challenges, not only biological but political. Understanding species reproductive physiology is not possible a month or two. It takes years after years to study how species reproductive biology and behavior issues, how they're breeding, what are the time, what are the facility required, the behavior issue, all those things required to breed successfully in captive conditions. So far, almost 19 species were successfully reintroduced in the wild after successful breeding globally. 7 of them, interestingly, they've gone extinct to the wild, and these 7 of them basically kept in captive condition, bred and released in the wild. That means species extinct in wild have been successfully bred in captivity, released in the wild. That's a interesting thing. There are 7 species. There are some examples like bald eagle, golden lion tamarin, Andean condor. There are some typical examples where a lot of scientists involved breeding these species, released in the wild. But normally, as I mentioned here, it's not so easy to breed them in captivity. This is one of the simplest example. I just tell you a mouse deer, which myself involved in breeding in captive condition. Although the species commonly present, but serious threat exists due to a lot of poaching in the forest due to various reasons. But Government of India and the Central Zoo Authority of India started breeding in the captivity. What happened? Very interesting observation here. When they were breeding, of the way they abandoned breeding program because they had no idea the biology of the species. All of a sudden, 70 individual to 6 individuals crashed back with only 1 female, 7 males. Then they approached us, can CCMB help like that? Then we entered into the program and started helping them. And interestingly, we understood there one major phenomenon called postpartum estrus, discovery of postpartum estrus, which is very rare in many mammalian species, where as soon as animal delivers, within 2 to 3 months in mammalian species, most of the mammalian species, what we know is it comes after 3 months, where is ready for mating. Whereas in this species, we found within 4 hours, a male need to be there to mate them immediately. That means the delivery and mating happen same day within 4 hours. That phenomenon which we observed using both behavior and reproductive physiology, understanding hormones, when we showed them the government that whenever animal is pregnant, introduce a male to the cages so that it can breed well. That's what happened. Luckily, this has been bred to 6 to 240 individuals with a simple scientific observation. By understanding reproductive physiology, we were very successful. Now we have 405 individuals were bred in captivity. When Central Minister came, reintroduced the wild. So sometimes biology of species is very, very important for breeding a species. That's what I was telling you. It is a great challenge to understand the reproductive physiology. When you understood, then easy to do this one. There are many other such we have undertook. It's not really matter, but what we understood is this a postpartum estrus phenomenon. Another way of looking at species is like when animals are breeding well, no need of any technology required. As long as they breed well, it's fine. But there are occasions it won't breed well. Like we need assisted reproduction. Many times in human, when normally couples don't have any issue, we always go to a fertility center where we find out whether we are fit to have child or not, both the way male and female partner. Similarly, in wild animals, not such technology available, although there's a time to learn things, and we started working on the lacons. This lacons, our lab was established exclusively for this kind of activities where one can use the technology to breed, understand reproductive physiology, and do a lot of breeding, both in captivity center as well as in our laboratory conditions. So essentially, we want to develop various techniques to help breeding of wild animals. That was the entire program which we started. It's called assisted reproduction. It involves basic semen collection to all the way to IVF, embryo transfer and cloning. That was the entire understanding assisted reproduction. But doing is not so easy when we handle animal. Unlike in human, easy to collect semen, easy to understand whether the women is cycling or not. Whereas in wild animals, it's not so easy. When started working on, we found so many bottlenecks. One of them, even handling animals. Those time when we started 2000 plus, there hardly any information available about handling animals. People use a different way of anesthesia and darting procedure. We standardize, myself, my colleague standardize method called chemical immobilization of wild animals. We have extensively studied large number of species and developed the method to how much anesthesia required, what is the captural, what is that recovery of this sedation. We extensively studied almost 2 years before we start work on this. Lion, tiger, leopard, all kind of mammal and ungulates we did successfully. And we had ready with us to understand how one can use this methodology. Now it's available all over India. People started using, even Central Zoo Authority of India using the manual which we produced by many zoos people like it, zoo veterinarians now. So when we developed such techniques, we first started working on to estimate the fitness of many animals. As I mentioned, any breeding program, we need to understand whether the male is fit to breed or not. That's the first quality of a breeding pair, is to know whether male is capable of breeding. Means whether the semen profile from lion is good to be partner of the breeding pair. So if you want to know, is there any method available? There are no system method available. This is called a new method called electroejaculation. This method somebody from USA invented actually to collect semen from a terminally ill patient human, to collect semen so that you can have baby. So similar procedure essentially involve 2 to 4 volt current, which by a probe can be inserted, and after anesthesia animal, one can collect semen. Basically, it induces prostate gland by giving a 2 to 3 volt current, and it can simulate and it ejaculates within few minutes. This has been we have done this in actually Junagadh with the veterinary doctor here. Junagadh Zoo, we collected first time semen 2002 around that time. So we started collecting semen from these animals to essentially to find out whether animals fit so that they can be used. Similarly, we did tigers, we did leopard, this is also Junagadh, where to examine whether this animal is capable of doing breeding in the captive breeding program. We also not only worked on these lions, but semen similarly. Meantime, there is another request from Central Zoo of India that vultures, one of the largest predators, scavenging bird, which is prevalent all over India, but almost decline population 95% due to many reasons. One of the reasons was actually diclofenac. Many of you know that veterinary diclofenac made very serious impact on the physiology of animal. So many animal gone almost decline population 95%. So there is a decline population. Government of India wanted to have a breeding population, so they asked us to help in breeding of vultures. So when we want to study what is happening to the vulture, we started working on how to collect semen from its vulture. That's the first challenge, is how to handle animal. It's not so easy to handle animal, and we need to examine whether the animals are fit to be breeding or not. As I mentioned previously, if you want to have a good breeding pair, we need to have both male female fitness of breeding. First one is male. So we just started working on that time, and then we have no idea to collect semen, and we actually developed a methodology called manual massage method. The first time we developed a massage where animals are under fully non-sedation condition. Fully animals are very active. There are 4 people hold, 1 person massage and collect semen. This has been followed by many more people after that. Therefore, we developed a new method to collect even semen from wild birds, which is very not easy to handle. And we were very successful, not only semen collection, but cryopreservation and doing other work related to assisted reproduction. When semen is collected, we know animals giving semen, good quality semen collected, but is that really doing well? So we need to check the quality of semen. When you want to collect quality semen, normally people use under microscope where we look at whether the quality is fine and whether normally they use subject way. It's a graded, they grade 1, 2, 3, 4 accordingly to it. But that is not correct for somebody really looking for endangered species. When you hear 1 or 2 individual, when we want quicker and better resolution of your result, so we thought we should use something method called computer aided SIM analysis, which has been just landed for human fertility clinic. When we modified the method and based on our semen characteristics, especially their morphology of many wild animals, we modified the method a little bit here and there and tweaked, and we used this methodology to check quality of semen. Essentially, within 30 seconds, one can, using 10 microliter, one can really examine the semen quality by understanding the density, the velocity, all kind of parameters we can examine with no matter of time in the field itself, so that as and when you collect semen, the quality semen is checked, so that can be used immediately reproductive purpose. When semen is also collected, we don't want to lose the semen because collecting semen is very, very difficult for an animal that can be cryopreserved. When cryopreservation, many of you know that every individual is unique. We need to standardize procedure, and every animal morphology, sperm characteristics is different, morphology is different, or volume is different. So we need to standardize. So we have started standardizing many species for cryoprotectant, the buffer. Then we started cryopreserving the semen for future purposes. We have almost so many animals we successfully did, and our post-mortality is something like comparable to many other published information. So then you have semen collected, you objectively you examine using CASA, then you check the cryopreservation, whether the sperm which you store really capable of having function of penetrating zona pellucida, especially to fertilize the egg. That was the other question, because functionality is very, very important. This is called penetration zona free hamster oocyte test. When any lion, tiger sperm can be tested, whether the sperm, the particular individual male can have capable of functionally reproduce animal. That was the idea of testing this one. This can be tested by using this method, which is laboratory method. We can check. We were successful doing this also. That means we so far tested collected semen, analyzed the semen, and even cryopreserved semen also tested for the functionality. So same time, we also developing called genome resource banking. When this semen which is cryopreserved can be also stored for future purposes, because this it serves as as insurance or future. Many of you know, when Indian cheetah gone extinct late 1950s, if somebody would have collected a piece of fresh skin or saved and stored somewhere in -70, we would have used. Now we have resurrected using leopard as a surrogate mother. We would take our own cheetah. But although technology is available now, but the sample which we Indian cheetah we lost. So this can help in future. Somebody want to have use of this genetic material future purpose can be used. So the idea to have such a resource bank so that anybody can use this sample. For us, so far we have almost 100 plus DNA, 15 blood samples, sperm and tissue samples, and we also have stem cells of 9 species, and we have almost 600-700 DNA sample from birds to animal reptiles. We have in CCMB Hyderabad. It's called Frozen R Consortium, where this can help not only CCMB, other fraternity who is interested to understand what was the condition, how one can be used. Is there anything we can check? Different location, different geographic location, their genetic and reproductive fitness. This can be used. So essentially, it's called Genome Resource Bank of Wildlife. We established, and we are successfully using this bank. And we are getting more and more samples all over India to accumulate more samples here. And that is done. Then once, as I mentioned, male is ready now, semen collected, examined. Now what you do, female. So similarly, female normally, many of wild animals are actually a seasonal animal. When animals are seasonal, we don't know what stage animals are there, whether we can collect semen can be inseminated or not. So can we do artificially? This was a question raised to us when Central Zoo Authority of India, CZA, asked us to really help in breeding of lion. You remember when early 2000, 2001 and 2, there's high demand of Asiatic lion all over the zoo. They want to breed more and more. So they asked us to help in breeding intensively in captive program. So we actually used exogenous hormone to induce ovulation. Basically, animals, we have no idea what stage, but artificially we made animal to breed by inducing hormones, and we were successful in doing so. 10 out of 13 animals showed behavioral stress and evidence of brutal activities. So what I want to try to say is here that animals can be induced ovulated so that the animal can be inseminated during non-breeding season. So when we want to intensify breeding, we can do this kind of activity. So similarly, we want to develop similar estrus synchronization, like I was telling you just Asiatic lion. We also did work on other species, spotted and black buck, where animals, we have no idea about what cycle of animal is, so that we want synchronized estrus. What we did is, we actually implanted hormone implant so that we synchronize, shut down all the hormone activities for 12 days, then remove implant, then give a small dose of hormone, then allow them to cycle, and it can cycle, estrus comes, then you can inseminate the animal, then there's a chance of pregnancy. This is called estrus synchronization, because we have no idea animals in what stage, because most of the time the deers are asymptomatic. They don't show much behavioral sign of estrus. So when we want to really to improvise the reproductive techniques, we need to have this kind of activities. So we use this method to for other species, although we know spotted deer and black buck is very common and is available. And we were very successful in doing so by inducing ovulation, estrus synchronization in this spotted deer. We were successful almost 33%, where estrus, after estrus synchronization, first time the animal delivered fawn, which is entirely artificial. So as a test tube baby, you can say. Similarly, we did not only spotted deer, but also in black buck. So this is want to demonstrate to the zoo fraternity and other people that such a methodology available. We can really use for this technology for breeding any species which are really required assisted protection. We were very successful doing so, and we did even in birds, which is commonly called in a pigeon as a model species, because we want to demonstrate similar methodology can be used: semen collection, semen carrier preservation, artificial insemination, incubation, artificially incubated, and laid egg, and hatched out. So all the procedure exactly what we did in animal species, especially in deers, and we also did in birds also. So this technology is available to anybody to use this method, and we were very successful. What the other method which is available is the cloning. Many of you know that when last animal like Mouflon sheep was dying, somebody collected tissue from Mouflon sheep and used surrogate mother as a common sheep and successfully cloned the animal. Similarly, cow, and recently in India, people have cloned our wild buffalo. So the methodology, when we have a limited individual, there are few individuals in the wild. So we don't wait for the animal to breed. It takes some time, and it may die due to disease, everything. So we can use this kind of nuclear transfer or cloning so that we can maximize breeding in a short period of time. So these are all little technology available to us to really work on this one. And the other method, like our lab, my colleague here, Samba Siva Rao, developed this method where even postmortem sample can be used for this recovery of oocytes. Now, when animal dies, if you're able to collect within 4 hours, one can really, collect oocytes from dead animal. That was a thing very interesting. People say animal died means permanently dead. So no more. People can collect reproductive organs, and we can cryopreserve, and mature in diabetic condition can be resurrected a new individual. It's very well possible. This other method my colleague in CCMB worked on, Dr. Sandeep Goyal, where they use xenografting when animal dies, as I mentioned previously, and the tissue can be implanted. Xenografting to the nude mice, nude mice, immunocompromised mice in laboratory, where testicles can be implanted in this animal, then later on it can be harvested, sperm can be harvested. Any species, this here used mouse deer to implant mouse deer testes in the nude mice, and is able to harvest sperm from there. So this has been also well established in many species. The new modern methods where last individual dies, that organ can be harvested, can be extended life, and you can go on and collect reproductive cells from this. Very well possible. These are all very modern methods available as part of assisted reproduction techniques. Then other method which we developed in our lab is non-invasive hormone technology. Many of you know that this is well used in human when we want to understand our hormone level, whether you have thyroid issue, whether you have any sugar issue, any other issue. We go to the lab and give a blood sample, we do it. But is it available similar to in wild animal? Very rarely you can do it. So this is called a non-invasive hormone method, where this can be used to understand many issues, including understand whether animal is pregnant, whether animal is really stressful. So theoretical diagnostic management, many ways one can use this hormone method, because unlike human, animal cannot tell, and behavioral clues are very limited, so that using hormone one can really understand the physiology of animal. Many of you know, I don't want to tell about hormones. Very, very important. If you're able to assess hormone, you are able to understand everything. As you know, it's a fundamental regulating reproductive success and health of animal and well-being. So if you're able to assess hormone, you'll be able to understand entire process of animal. So how do you measure hormone? As I mentioned, normally circulatory blood is very, very important to collect, important for hormone assessment. But how long is possible collecting blood from tigers and lions? It's not so easy. It's very stressful. And how long will collect? Many of you know that if you're able to examine hormone, if you may collect morning, it gives a morning single point. But interestingly, as you all know very well, hormones are secreted in the blood system in pulsatile mode. Every 4 hours, there's ups and downs. So collecting morning hours may not represent afternoon, afternoon may not represent morning hour. There's a lot of variation you can find in the blood plasma. So is there anything possible? Similarly, it's not also possible, as I mentioned, bleeding a repeated cycle for 15 days or 21 days every day. It's very, very difficult. What's the alternative method? It's called non-invasive method. It can be examined the same hormone in urine, saliva, and fecal samples. What are the non-invasive hormone? How do you do it? It has several advantages. You don't require so many people, veterinarian, assistant veterinarian, keeper, biologist, so many people required to collect blood from leopard. Is it possible so many days to collect? So this is an alternative method called non-invasive method. One can use fecal samples, other non-invasive sample, so that same hormone can be examined. It gives a not only long-term ovarian activity, reproductive activity, but also a pooled value of a previous day. One day value, average morning to evening average value it gives. That gives a very good concentration also. So only thing is, it has disadvantages that you need to actually validate for every species before use, because there's a variation in excretion, whether animals steroids excreted from hormone, from fecal, urine. We need to know before we use this one. What are the non-invasive samples? Feces, urine, saliva, milk, hair, bird feather, bird excreta, and fish excreta, and water also. These are all the non-invasive sample one can use to this one. Our lab in CCMB Lacan, we have standardized many hormone assay method and developed a kit for this. The 3 progesterone and related metabolites, testosterone is metabolite, estrogen and metabolite, cortisol metabolites, and we also developed a paper-based ELISA kit for pregnancy detection. So we have developed so many kits to use this methodology to examine not only reproduction but also stress in these animals, and also pregnancy detection in animal. So once you have all this, one can really do all kind of work. So what are the methods involved? Basically collect samples from wild and in the field wherever you collect, and extract metabolites as a non-invasive sample, and you need to find out how the hormones present, whether it is in a fecal sample or urine or what metabolites is there, kind of thing. Then validate your assay and estimate the hormone. The method available to use this hormone method. First is study we carried out tigers. Many times tigers in the captivity, all of a sudden they deliver, so they have no clue in understanding pregnancy, because when as soon as animal deliver, if there is a disturbance, the female kills cubs and eat up sometime. This has been very well reported. Our Hyderabad Zoo and other people repeatedly ask me, can you help us understanding pregnancy? That was first question way back 2001. Somebody posted me, Chief there from Hyderabad Zoo. Then I was looking for various metabolites and the hormone profile, and I able to found and able to monitor reproductive hormone, because it helps them to detect early pregnancy so that they can give protection to the tigers in the captivity. And as all you know, that tigers deliver the cubs in a very secluded area in the field, and they rear almost 2 to 3 months before they can be independent go out. Mostly they're very blind when they deliver time. So when in the zoo condition, if there is such a condition, if there is a disturbance, always they kill the cubs first as a safety precautionary measure. So this was happening many zoos. So they approached us, we started working on that. So we did monitor tigers and lions reproductive hormones, and we also came up with a methodology where one can detect pregnancy as early as 20-25 days using our one of the metabolites which we discovered from this fecal samples, and we'll able to help them understanding as early as within a month of mating. So that helps them. Many zoos, they normally send fecal sample to us to find out single sample pregnancy detection. We help them. So we demonstrated and published quite a few papers using this steroid and to examine pregnancy, and many zoos are using now. So they directly help zoo management to know protection and they give a welfare to the animals, whether it's a tiger, lion, leopard, many animals now successfully be able to detect pregnancy. And not only that, this is another example, another question came to us, Mysore Zoo and even Calcutta Zoo, they're asking us, can you detect pregnancy in giraffe using fecal samples? That was things we monitored almost 3 giraffe in Mysore Zoo, and we understood their every hormone profile, and we were able to detect as early as once again 2 months. So the giraffe, they are almost 22 months pregnancy. If you're able to detect pregnancy within 2 months, they're very, very happy. Giraffe are very expensive to import from outside India, and very attractive animal any zoos wanted to have. So when you have early pregnancy detection, they can provide better care so that they deliver successfully. And in fact, we did 3 successful detection pregnancy in Mysore, and all of them delivered as very well. And we could detect within 2 months of early pregnancy. This was really helpful, the zoo people there. So one can really help the zoo management so that they can maximize the breeding and maximize the welfare of the animal. This is another typical example. We helped Himalayan musk deer. So only 7 musk deer was kept in a facility near somewhere Darjeeling, where they plan to breed them, and they ask us to help understanding reproductive physiology. And of the 7 animals, we show them 3 animals are cycling, and we monitor them. First time we shown gestation period, what is the pregnancy period, everything using hormone method by collecting fecal samples. We successfully help them to understand reproductive physiology and pregnancy, everything. So you can very well help not only like mammalian species, but also this kind of smaller animals like lower vertebrates, in cane turtle, strong tortoise. There are two typically endemic endangered species present in southern Western Ghats. One of my colleague, Dr. Karthikeyan Vasudevan, was working their territory behavior and home range by using radio collars. Since we have radio collar animal, we are able to monitor this animal and able to collect fecal samples from forest floor, and we are able to monitor their reproductive physiology, stress physiology, and breeding season, and the behavior with the stress level and reproductive fitness, everything. So even like tortoise and turtle can also be monitored using these hormone methods, not only in the laboratory condition, but also in the forest. So based on this method, many of you know that cattle is one of the cattle income from cattle growing at home, and people have selling milk is very, very important. Many of you know that this is very, very important area in Indian industry. 70 million dairy farmers are involved. Unluckily, there is no method available pregnancy detection. The cattle and buffalo. The method which is available is basically used by actually veterinarian, where you can put his hand and manual palpation possible. What we developed based on our which is CIRAD, which I mentioned to you, and we are able to detect pregnancy as early 21 days. So using simpler the procedure which we developed here, we translated into the paper-based, so that the farmer can use the simple device, the field, within 10 minutes of a dung sample collection, 3 to 5 weeks. That was our development of the kit based on what I worked in wildlife, that lead to not only other welfare of animal, but also directly an economy of Indian farmers, especially cattle and buffaloes. This has been now commercialized by a company from outside. And not only which you can monitor reproductive and stress in smaller animals, wild animals, but also this kind of elephants. Many of you know that repeatedly you heard newspaper that elephant killed a person. There are cases like almost 274 cases of manslaughter by elephants in Kerala, one of the state where elephants are commonly maintained. They used for a very auspicious function, whether it is a marriage or it is a festival, a temple, anything, they use elephants routinely. Same time, there are a lot of issues that are happening, and you also think of none of the elephants in captive so far, except 2 locations, they don't breed. So there is a issue how long the captive elephants can survive. Although we have a few thousand elephant captivity, but all of them 40 to 50 years old, and they aren't breeding. There is also concern that future, another 20 years, there won't be any elephant captivity. So if you want anybody elephant, you need to capture from wild, because none of the captive elephant, except few places, they don't breed. So they are getting extinct, basically. So there is a really concern, what is the reason? So one of the questions asked us to understand what is happening is that why their females not breeding. That's our question. So we looked at 3 elephant facility, Mysore, Hyderabad, Tirupati zoos. We want to examine how the reproductive cycle and stress of this animal, which used different kind of activities. This elephant which is not used, this the cycle is the reproductive cycle, the progesterone cycle. Red dots are actually stress hormones. These elephants which are start cycling, there's an injury here and stop cycling this entire elephant. Whereas this last figure here, the elephant cycling same time used for this activity. So what happened when elephants are used procession? Procession is almost 7 to 8 hours per day, sometimes even 11 hours. they walk Hyderabad sun, hot sun, and they undergo a lot of stress. When the stress is too much, there is a shutdown of reproductive activity. That's what we observed here. The first time we shown that this kind of activity is led to compromising reproductive cycle of the elephants first time. So that means although the elephant never showed any behavioral abnormalities when they walked the crowd and along with all the sound, but they expressed the stress in the way of physiology that influenced the reproductive fitness of animal. First time we shown that such activity led to reproductive failure. So not only that also affecting fitness and other aggression. So similarly, we also examined how one can use fitness and the captive condition, whether the elephants are doing well. Mysore, Hyderabad Zoo, Tirupati Zoo, we found Mysore Zoo are doing well, Tirupati is not doing well. When we compared zoos, what happened? Animals are kept in isolation, where animals are kept together. When animals are kept together, they are very happy. When animals are kept isolation, they are very stressed. So this kind of can be studied. When we able to monitor must from fecal hormone, we can predict must, because must is a reproductive behavior which can actually influence the behavior of this animal and become aggressive. Using fecal hormone, one can really predict the must. We also checked the hormone profile of this such hormone profile of elephants used in various activities. This elephant used Dasara festival, elephant used for film shooting, where you find these are stressed when compared to Mysore Zoo animal. So this report shows that elephant used various activities have influence on their stress on the body. That's what I want to demonstrate here. And working, non-working elephants. And this elephant in particular, we monitor stress hormone. The animal was carrying almost 1200 kg of weight, 3 to 4 kilometers. When you monitor every day, on the day of carrying, it has stress level increased 4 to 5 times. This was really stressful. So we think that elephants are carrying, they are happy, everything, but that's not the case. This was first time we showed that it was not the case. So another interesting example, and tigers, many of you know that tigers gone extinct, Sariska and Panna, and the tigers are reintroduced both the places, tiger reserves. And but one tiger reserve, Panna, started breeding, 23 breeding after a few years of breeding, whereas Sariska, they are not breeding. There's a question asked why Sariska introduced tigers not breeding while Panna is breeding. That was a question. People say that because of collar, animals are not breeding. Somebody says the females are not reproductively fit. Many questions were asked, and there's a meeting. Even Prime Minister that time visited Sariska to find out what's the reason. By the time they came to me and find out whether these females are breeding, what they're doing like that. So they asked me to help, and I monitored these tigers for a period of time and found all of them capable of breeding by hormone analysis. But surprise to our result, we found Sariska tigers are very stressed compared to Panna tiger. Both are introduced, they are breeding well, they are not breeding well. So that shows that the high level of stress in this tiger population led to failure in breeding. The first time we shown that what are factors influence encounter with the livestock, domestic kill, distance road, and water hole, encounter of the human. These are all the factors directly influence the stress of animals. So when you have such a problem, we also examine, meantime, Supreme Court banned tiger tourism in core area. Especially nobody should stay in core area in the tiger. So there are so many cases was going on. So it prompted us to examine, is there anything happening in tiger reserve? That was a question. So we used 2 tiger reserves, Bandhavgarh tiger reserve, Kanha tiger reserve, to understand, is this happening to the other tiger reserve? They are stressful due to tourism related activities. There are hundreds of vehicles goes inside, and is there tigers are doing well? That is our question. And we collected samples from these places, and we almost for Bandhavgarh 200 samples were collected. We tiger examined for whether based on DNA, male and female, tourism time, non-tourism time examined. Similarly, Kanha tiger reserve, 146 samples, tourism time, non-tourism time examined whether tiger or not, male, female examined. Then we also examined how many people visited the places. Almost an average of 395 people per day Bandhavgarh Tiger Reserve visited. 509 people visited Kanha Tiger Reserve. Think of so many people visit. And 85 vehicle Bandhavgarh, 106 vehicle Kanha Tiger Reserve. There are so many vehicles goes inside. 51,000 vehicle went there. 244,000 people visited these places. So many people in around. And we checked what the stress level during tourism time, non-tourism time. This is called Bandhavgarh Tiger Reserve, the Kanha Tiger Reserve. Both the places during tourism time, animals have high level stress compared to non-tourism time. It's similar to both sexes, male and female. It's not so different, although female are more stressed compared to male, but the trend is same. So that result shows that how both the tigers in these places suffering with high intensity of tourism. One tiger here, the 30-40 vehicles queued up, they're drinking water. Look at here how much disturbance this animal will have. And whenever a tiger sighted, the driver calls other vehicle to come to see the tiger. So until the tiger escapes somewhere and hide there, the animals are followed till inaccessible roads they are there. So such a tourism activity is happening in India, and we are monitoring not only now 2 tiger reserves, along 7 tiger reserves we are monitoring at present. Not only that, we also examined is there any relationship stress level with number of vehicles visited. Number of vehicles visited, stress level increases directly related. So that shows that more vehicle, more stress animal. That's what our study shows. Similar to that, and we using this hormone, we also examine the welfare of zoos, how tigers are doing well, different tiger population, different zoos. We saw that some tigers captivity not doing well like that. We can examine, and similarly we examined stress level wild animal, lion-tailed macaque, when animals live in small distributed forest fragment with a large forest fragment. Is there any difference in the stress level? We found high level of stress in degraded and small forest patches. So only collecting fecal sample, we can really understand the physiology of animal using these methods. This is another interesting observation. Many North Indian states, Indian states have sheltered cow shelters and government funded, and they are not properly maintained. One of my colleagues in Himachal Pradesh, Arvind Sharma, wanted to study welfare of cows in the shelter by studying long-term monitoring. So we decided to collect hair samples. We collected hair sample of this animal and used hair cortisol, stress hormones, to understand what they are doing in these places. We found significantly the poor quality of maintenance is related to stress level. We first time shown that, because hair sample shows that the cumulative value of 3 to 4 months, unlike fecal sample, 1 day value, whereas hair sample give 3 to 4 months value of stress level. That itself helps to even long-term monitoring, not only long-term monitoring, but also large number of samples, almost 549 lactating cows, non-lactating cows, 54 shelter we monitor and show that how stressful some of these welfare schemes not really doing well. That was our study. We did a published paper in Animals, one of the good journal there. And these are all what I showed so far is basically reproductive tools. And just briefly introduce, there are other tools one can use in wildlife conservation. Briefly, I'll take another 5 minutes time. And this can be used for identification species, detecting genetic variation, population structure, sexing, phylogenetic relationship, biogeography, and evolutionary taxonomic status. Basically, we use, these are all the tools available: microstructural marker, mitochondrial deloop region, MHC, SNPs, whole genome sequence approach. These are all the tools available for this kind of studies. This is CCMB has developed forensic. Now many states, even Gujarat, has its own forensic lab. This is simple primer, which is called universal primer, developed by us and CCMB, my colleague Varman Singh, were successfully used for identifying large number of samples without having reference samples. So we were successfully helping authorities all over India to detect species identification from many samples, whether that is fecal samples or anything like that, it can be used. Similarly, this non-invasive sample can also be used for barcoding. You know, when you have a small piece of feather intact with the follicles, can be studied for barcoding of life, structure of population, how the population is continuous or structured like that can be examined, and relatedness, how their population are related to each other can be examined using the samples, and genetic variation. This is a lion which our colleague studied, and they have a high variability, almost 0.32% is heterozygosity. It is almost a good number in Asiatic lion and Gir forest, which we found. Very good genetic diversity found using this methodology. And we used even rescuing repatriation of tortoises have been smuggled out of India, and where they come from, we examined by using phylogenetic studies, comparing with the known sample with unknown sample, we were able to find out where they originally they caught the wild. Accordingly, the confiscated sample can be released in the wild. Okay, this kind of work can be done using the samples. Other typical example is this is not done by us, but outside, where they used ivory, seized ivory and extracted DNA, non-invasive method, to identify that there are tusks available in Japan and China market, where they come from, which state are still sending. They found that South African countries still exporting the ivory from various countries. So this non-invasive sample can be even examined very well. So this also worked on very well. Another interesting species, pygmy hawk, our lab worked on. When you want to study how captive breeding is doing well, although this is one of the critically endangered species, we helped breeding center to understand. They have 7-8 generation so far bred in captivity, what they're doing well or not. We examined their genetic diversity over a period of generations. We did find they're doing well, not bad, but we advise them to take care of future population like that. So one can help directly in breeding program using this methodology to help them selectively using individual which are high quality of genetic variations. So as I mentioned, even we can use non-invasive samples like eDNA, where one can study biodiversity by collecting just water. We have one study we are going on in Silica lab. We just collect water sample, extra DNA, extra DNA. One can really examine what are the biodiversity, whether from microbes to mammalian species. These are all possible now with this modern methodology. The simple procedure available. We work on this procedure as well. As I mentioned previously also, this non-invasive sample can be used even sexing birds. Actually, many times the zoo, they have no idea birds which are monomorphic birds. They just keep together, including vultures. They have no idea how male, female look like. When we can use a feather sample to actually sex them, and accordingly you can keep separately together based on the sex possible. And paternity test, many times in this example of how elephant cough in many places, they actually smuggle elephant cough from forest and sell in the market as if their captive elephants gave birth to that. But many times it was not that. To examine whether the paternities are both are same or not, we can examine using this methodology to find out the cough originally belongs to particular parent or not. So we successfully helped forest department to use this method to identify whether the cough belongs to their and the parents. So I thank before end my talk here, and I thank my collaborators, Dr. Shankar, Ramesh, and Karthik Vasudevan from Wildlife of India, Ajit Kumar from NCBS, Andre Gansmith from South Africa, funding DST, CSIR, DBT, NTCA, research permission from various states, and my students, researcher from my lab. And I thank all of you, and I thank the patient listening to my talk, and thank the organizer. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Umapati.
Thank you. Hope you all enjoyed. Yeah.
Oh, it was a wonderful talk, and I'm sure there will be people wanting to have ask you questions. Umapati sir, your mic is on.
Yeah.
Sir, your mic is on.
Yeah. I just wanted to thank him for a very, very excellent, informative, lecture. And so many things what you have said are just heard by us, and you have demonstrated the success of the story. That is really great. So, and I must thank you on behalf of association also. However, formal thanks will be given by our colleague. Please, sir.
Right, sir. Before we give the vote of thanks, I would keep the forum open for questions. I will myself start the process by asking a couple of queries to Dr. Umapati.
Yeah.
Sir, what I want to know is that Indian forests and the Indian wild animals, the stress levels you talked about, but there is so much of tourism in Africa. And have similar studies been done? And what is your opinion about that?
Yeah. Now, recently, they also started working on, especially in Gurugar National Park. There are 2 studies already came up. There, it's a, there are some restriction in, tourist places. India is very small, narrow place. Unlike in Gurugar National Park, other national park, there are thousands of square kilometer. We have only few hundred square kilometer. For example, Bandhavgarh is 700, 800 square kilometer area. And we have kept core zone, buffer zone separately. We supposed to only use maximum 20% of core zone for tourism. But it's not the case when we observed. It's more than that. In fact, very, very high level. And we recorded all the information and submitted to National Tiger Conservation Authority, because tourism gives a lot of income to the state governments, and it's the main source of income for many forest department and other things. So it is there, and but unlike India, I was telling you something like 51,000 vehicle visited per year. Okay, something like that. So that is too much vehicle, and each vehicle spend 4 to 5 hours. In South Africa and other places, I also visited 2 years ago, and a vehicle goes independently. There is no mobile tower, there's no phone. If you able to see tiger, you see, that's all over. But you don't invite others. Whereas here, Bandhavgarh, Kana, every place, a tiger sighted by a driver immediately intimate all other people. There are 20-30 vehicle follows the tiger until escapes. Tiger escapes. Okay, it's not easy. I myself witnessed, and in fact, we recommended to the government of India completely ban phone inside the tiger reserves. But how things works here, and it's not the case. And it's all one in the only rules book says nobody should take phones inside. But
Agreed.
yeah, so they communicate among the drivers, and all of a sudden, tigers surrounded by 30-40 vehicles. And during breeding season, tigers they breed 4-5 days continuously. Think of 4 days, 2 male, 1 male and female mating. There are 30 vehicles follow them. Think of, there are a few tigers are adopted. Some buffer zone, they born and brought up like zoo. They're doing well. But long term, as I mentioned in Sariska, it was not the case. They may lose their reproductive fitness, and ultimately we may lose. They're doing well, but I don't know how long.
And what about the gene pool, the studies that you have done? These are actually 2 questions in one.
Yeah.
I want to know about the gene pool, and also I want to know about the stress monitoring that you have done.
Yeah.
Which animal or which geographical area or sanctuary or national park that you have seen in India has got the worst gene pool and highest level of stress? Which animal and which place? If you can just single out.
So genetic study we collected all over India of tigers and lions, and they are doing well. As of now, there is no issue as of now. And the tigers are actually, you know, very well that they are part of meta population, they're sharing the genes and most of the tiger landscapes. And there are many publications came out by our colleagues and other people. They are doing well. And the stress level, especially, I did find especially high tourism area like Bandhavgarh, Khana, and Ranthambore and Nagarhole. These are places where high level of tourism is happening. So I've been collecting samples of these locations, and I will know maybe after a few years. There is a government of India funded me once again to examine all over India. So I'm collecting 7 tiger reserves, including carpet and Ranthambore and many places, even many less tourism area like Periyar Tiger Reserve. I'm collecting samples, and I will know maybe another couple of years after that. I will know, because this is a 3-4 years project.
Okay.
But as of now, we did find still highest tourism levels happening in Bandhavgarh and Kana.
We will look forward to the results eagerly.
Yeah.
I think the whole of country will look forward to the result.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have got more questions, but then I'll open it to the other people. Anybody else would like to ask a question, please? You can switch on your, first you can put up your hand, then switch on the camera and ask. Raktim Mukherjee, Dr. Raktim, please go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, hello. How are you?
Sir, as always, your talk is always enlightening. I have had the personal fortune of listening to you in SRBC several times.
Thank you.
Okay. I just have one. Can you just enlighten me about the particular sexing of birds that you mentioned?
Yeah. So, you know, this is a kind of methodology, non-invasive sexing. You know, the females have a uniform, you know, there is a chromosome difference, gene difference is there. Based on different gene, one can easily sex a bird using feather samples, basically. Simple gel run you run. When you have 2 bands, it is 2 markers available. You run with the marker, and you will be able to find if it male is a 2 band, and if it's a female, it's a single band. Simple procedure. It's a simple technology. Just collect feather and run sample. So many times people keep male together and looking for breeding. So always there are conditions. Yeah, it's very well possible. This simple procedure, just gel run. You don't really do PCR and other thing, not required. I will send a paper to you. Yeah.
Anyone else would like to ask a question? Well, there are people who are thanking you for a very informative lecture, a very informative talk. Another comment, very nice talk, sir. You can see it in the chat box.
Yeah.
Students, we would like to hear from you. What queries do you have? Well, the whole idea of having this platform of Association of Zoologists, AOZ, is to get you know, such people with vast experience and can do an interdisciplinary you know, research, bringing in the veterinary sciences, the classical zoology, the wildlife biology, and the high advanced tools and techniques of biotechnology. Keyur Bhatti and Hetal Doctor have got questions. First Keyur, then Hetal. Over to you.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
It was a really wonderful talk that you gave just right now. I'm from Zoology Department of MSU, and like I have recently read an article about the reintroduction of cheetahs in India. So, like, what are your points on that? Like, how should our forest department make sure that conservation is done?
Yeah, personally, I don't actually, it's a government. I'm also a government employee, and personally, I feel it's not required as a biologist, because it involves a lot of money, and there are many species required for attention, and such a investment can be made to save species, including getting busted. So it's almost verge of extinction. Somebody invests money, getting busted, can be saved from extinction. There are many such species require such attention. This is a not Indian species, it's an exotic species. Somebody want to bring and introduce, fine. As a scientist, you can bring and prove that one can really establish a habitat, can be done. But preference should be given to the local species which is required immediate attention. That's what my comments on that. Yeah.
A lot has been written and told about the reintroduction of cheetah, and actually the cheetah became extinct from India, but the ones that they were there with the royalty at that time, the royal families, it's a debate. They say that they were African and they were brought from Africa. The trainers were there who from Africa, who used to train them for the cheetah hunt, and it's really not very clear when did the Indian cheetah become extinct.
Yeah.
Dr. Hetal, doctor, over to you. Your question, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for delivering such a nice lecture. Sir, my question is, what could
You
be
can
your...
first introduce yourself. Where are you from?
Yes, sir. I am from. I have done my PhD from Gujarat University, and right now I am working as an assistant professor in Bhavnagar University. Sir, so my question is that you have just explained that stress level of these tigers are higher because of the tourism. So what could be the conclusion, that we should stop exploring such areas or tiger reserves? We could stop the tourisms?
Yeah, there's interesting. You know, the same question was asked to me by the secretary, Forest Department. So I told them we need actually sustainable tourism. What I'm saying is we should have tourism, same time conservation. But how much? So why so many vehicles? Restrict them. And limited number of vehicles can be allowed with a lot of restriction and rules and regulation. Yeah. So there should be a scientific way of doing tourism, not just allow everybody there. And those who really wanted, somebody wants to spend some money, limited, sustainable tourism is need of the hour. So we are not saying against tourism. We are saying you use tourism a sustainable way so that animal and economy will go hand in hand. That was our idea of having wildlife tourism. There's a limited. Why you are sending 51,000 vehicles or so many people there inside? You spend half of them, get more money, kind of thing.
I feel there is always a socio-political, economic angle to the wildlife conservation.
Yeah.
Because and I think in this a social scientist should also chip in and should be doing the work of the same caliber as wildlife scientists, wildlife biologists like you are doing.
Yeah.
So that will, I think, in India solve a lots of problems because yeah. Any other question?
Sir, one more thing, that
Dr. Hetal, you are using devices, so you can please switch off one because there's an
echo. Echo easy.
Okay, sir.
Go ahead.
So, sir, my question is like, we should give them some book or some terms and conditions that should be followed while tourism.
Absolutely, that's what my advocate. I was telling them that we should have certain rules and regulation and timing and how many vehicles can go inside, how many people can go. Scientific tourism. That's what I was telling them actually. In fact, the same question asked by secretary also. I said, fine, have tourism, but limited when required. They have 20% of core area can be allowed. So we can have 10%. 20% of tourism is, core area is too much as per norms, but we also recommended government not to have 20%, we are less. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if there are no further questions, then I think I will formally thank you. And to begin, I invite, yeah, sir is there. I invite Dr. Arun Dholakia, sir, to please bless us, to bless the gathering, to convey his blessings for today's occasion, and to deliver a formal vote of thanks. Sir.
Oh. Good evening, all of you. And special thanks to Dr. Umapati.
Thank you.
Let me tell you that you have not left a single stone unturned in the field of conservation biology, I can say now. And the rest of the future of Indian wildlife is upon you. And I am very positive about it. I am much relieved today. So many techniques and all that even I didn't knew. Dr. Mankodi sir rightly said that we were not aware of. And now you have focused it very nicely. And with the very positive notes, I should not take much time, but
Audio is lost.
I think his connection is lost, it seems.
Sir is facing some network issue.
Yeah, it seems.
Should we wait? What do we do, sir? But he is online. I can see him.
No, now he has gone off. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Go ahead. We can see.
Go ahead. There is some network problem. So let me conclude very fast that I am thankful to you on behalf of AOZ. On behalf of AOZ, I am highly thankful to you. And I am privileged to say thank you to you, Dr. Umapati. We are highly recharged with the knowledge that you have imparted with us, and with the very positive notes. On behalf of AOZ, once again, I'm very much thankful to you. Thank you very much, sir. Because there are problems with the network, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Professor Arun Dholakia, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
We would like to listen to you in much detail, maybe some other day.
Yeah, definitely.
Network issues. What I was suggesting was that you could have switched off your camera. Then the network becomes more smooth if the signal is weak.
Okay.
Then you would have been audible without any interruption.
Yeah.
With this, we come to the end of the Foundation Day celebration. And as you could see that we heard today, Dr. Govind Swami Umapati from the CCMB Hyderabad, who gave a fantastic talk.
Yes.
Encompassing, covering several facets of wildlife conservation, ranging from the captive wild animals to the domestic animals, a comparison between the two, and then talking about the actual conservation measures that have been taken in the wild and how interpretations can help in deciphering the the reproductive biology of the animals and in answering big questions in wildlife conservation. Thank you, sir. Thank you, one and all, for being present today. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay. Bye. See you soon. Yeah.
Bye. And hope to see you at Mysore very soon. Shall we end the meeting and log off?
Oh, yeah. We can stop the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.